I'm Reeves Kurtner, and this is In Your Business. Season 1 of In Your Business is presented by Moses Auto Mall of Huntington. Online at mosesmeansmore.com. And powered by the Huntington Regional Chamber of Commerce and Kindred Communications. This week, we're talking about starting a new business from scratch and everything that goes into it. Starting with the original concept, business plans, market research, permits, and more. Our guests this week are Ashley Skeen and Mandy Cunningham, owners of Booktenders in Barboursville, who just celebrated their 1-year anniversary in the summer of 2023. Let's get in your business. Ashley, Mandy, go ahead and introduce yourselves and give us the overview of Booktenders in Barboursville.
I'm Ashley Skeen.
I am Mandy Cunningham.
And what is Booktenders in Barboursville? What is it?
Booktenders is an independent bookstore, but it's also a little more than that. We have beer and wine and coffee and tea and fountain pens and fine inks. We have a lounge in which we do author events and allow clubs to host meetings. So, mainly a bookstore, though.
Right. Okay. No, so, and today we want to talk about starting a new business, which is perfect to have you here because you all just celebrated your 1-year anniversary. Mm-hmm. Yes. And how's that first year been so far?
Really good. It's been a lot better than we expected it to be. It's kind of strange. Like our business plan numbers ended up being like just about on point with what we've done.
Okay.
And that's apparently not really a normal thing, I guess. But yeah, we expected our business numbers to be a little bit over, the plan numbers, but ended up being better. We also accidentally snagged probably the best author event that we could have in our first year. So
that
probably
gave
helped
us a
lot.
huge boost.
Well, let's start from the very, very beginning then. So, where did the idea come from for Booktenders? How did that? And let's talk about your all's backstory, how you all got to know each other too. That's a part of this story, obviously.
Okay, so I moved back to Huntington in 2012 and have just been working in the restaurant industry, bar industry, also teaching yoga. And Mandy and I met prior to working together at Summit Beer Station. But that's where we kind of realized that we did work well together. So our friend jokingly said to me, "Do you want to open a coffee shop?" I said, "No, but it's always been my dream to open a bookstore." And his eyes lit up. Mandy came into work a little bit later. I told her about it. The next day, she had a spreadsheet.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was going to ask that. How long before the idea of hey, let's open up a bookstore to when the day you opened? What was, to your first day?
I mean, technically 6 months before we started doing pop-ups.
Okay.
It was basically, I had the spreadsheet. We talked about it. We figured it out in November is when we filed to become...
November 2021. Right. Okay.
Is when we filed. And that was maybe 2 months after or something.
Yeah, it was
literally
July
just
or
the amount of
August
time.
when the idea hatched.
Yeah, just the amount of time it took to file for the LLC. And then once we did that, March was our first pop-up. Mm-hmm. And then we opened in June.
Okay, so on this spreadsheet, some people love a good spreadsheet. What was on this spreadsheet?
So basically, the very first spreadsheet was, the amount of people in Barboursville, along with the idea that this is how much you would need to open a bookstore.
Yeah.
I went with the bare minimum of we could open this for this very, tiny amount. And then that obviously expanded.
So the location was the first step, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's Pat Hensley who you're talking about, right? Who has property in and around Huntington, Barboursville area. So he said, "Hey, open up a coffee shop." And you're like, "No, I don't want to. I want to do a bookstore." And so it was almost the what came first, the chicken or the chicken was before the egg on this one, right?
Exactly. Mandy and I are both. I was born and raised in Huntington. We both live here. And so opening a business in Barboursville seems kind of weird, but it wasn't like we said, let's open a bookstore. Where should we put it?
Okay. I was going to ask that.
Yeah, the space came first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, on your numbers, so you said how many people live in Barboursville, and obviously you're more supportive than just Barboursville.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't live in Barboursville, but I come, to your store. So, but what else on that market research? I mean, what did you find while you were doing that, while you were working on that spreadsheet?
Mainly a bunch of different, obviously, demographics, trying to kind of get an idea of how far we would spread. So how many bookstores are in the area, the closest bookstores, whether or not those are independent bookstores, what places sell books, what kind of books, is it niche? So, Inner Geek is more toys and stuff.
Right.
They have books, they're an independent bookstore, but they're more focused on toys.
That's right.
Cicada is more focused on used books.
Yep.
They've started selling some new. So we'll send people to Cicada if they want to donate or sell books. We'll send them to Inner Geek if they're looking for more of that comic book stuff. Purple Earth and Comic World are downtown, so they've got like comics and stuff, which we only carry some graphic novels.
Right.
So basically it was just like what is around us. So
what's the market look like? Yeah.
Where can we fit into that?
Right.
So that we're part of the puzzle and not like, trying to crash into anything.
And I think I was really scared and wanting to back out probably about 5 times.
Of course.
And I said to Mandy, I feel like this Main Street on Barbersville has been wanting to happen for a long time.
Sure.
Like, what makes you think it can happen now? And she said, well, it's Jason Beater, who owns businesses. It's
owns on that street,
Pat.
1861.
Yes, an Orbit's record shop.
Yep.
And more to come.
Yes.
And,
yeah, sure.
and Pat, and I want to add into that now, like looking back, the Mayor Tatum. Mm-hmm. So I would say, going into a business, do you feel like your neighborhood supports what you're doing?
That's right.
I think that's really important. And that was a big factor in, like, okay, I think this can work.
Yeah, I think my exact quote was from It's a Wonderful Life. I was like, we're getting in on the ground floor. Blast here.
Yeah. Well, and having that neighborhood part is important, too. It's like you can be a destination store, but having that drive-through foot traffic doesn't hurt either, right? I mean, you can park where you're located, you can park your car, go to the record store, go to the bookstore, get a beer, get a pizza, get a nice dinner at Main Street on Central, right? Like
go get something from the bakery in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely, all right there. And like you all said, there are more things to come, so it's cool. So funding, you touched on that too. Everybody can have a great idea, but unless you don't have the money or you can't get approved for it, whatever. So how was that process to get the funds and the down payments and the bankings and all that fun stuff?
We basically sat down and, like I said, I worked out a business plan and had an idea of what our base minimum of opening with like 5 bookshelves, like almost, nothing, just build it up, was going to be. So we had that kind of set as a goal, and we knew how much personally we were going to be able to put into that.
Yep.
So really we just needed to kind of figure out a way to get, the difference. And so we started looking for places that would give us a loan. So, we took all of our numbers to, 2 banks first.
I think we got turned down 3 times.
We did. So we took it to 2 banks first. And one of the banks wasn't going to be able to, even though they wanted to, just because that person was not the one that was going to be able to just approve it.
Okay.
And then the second one really wanted to and tried to push them after they said no because they squeezed the numbers. And apparently I was too honest.
Okay.
In our business plan.
They had a better spreadsheet than you did.
It was they take your numbers and assume that you inflated them, so they, I guess, squeeze them by a percentage or something.
Okay.
And because my numbers were more realistic,
understood,
that it dropped it.
It was really disheartening, and the fact that we are kind of the fact at the beginning of the interview, I said we're a whole bunch of things. Well, that really confused lenders,
of course,
insurance people, the health department, like the fact that we were like, hey, we are a bookstore,
sure,
but we also need a beer and wine license and all that. But we also did a crowdfunding effort, which was instrumental in us being able to get some stuff that we needed before the loan finally came through.
Let's go back though. You said that you were turned down 3 times. I mean, you said that was disheartening. What'd you do next? Just go to another bank? Just keep knocking on somebody else's door?
Yeah, we basically had The first bank we went to was just because it was, a super local bank close to where we were.
Okay.
And then we had
He sent us to the second person.
Yeah, and then we had a business coach, and he told us to go to another bank. So we kind of had those 3 banks.
Okay.
And then finally, Pat actually was like, you should go to this bank because I feel like that one might be, more helpful.
And so the third bank, the guy was really helpful that it would go through, and we were going to do a what kind of loan? SBA loan, and we got rejected from that because we had crowdfunded.
Okay.
So at this point, we had actually started crowdfunding because we weren't able to get the loans to that point. So she had seen or heard a podcast that said something about somebody like crowdfunding.
Well, it's interesting. So I was going to ask, so I was going to assume maybe the bank said, okay, here's this much money for you, but then you're like, well, we need a little bit more, so we'll do a crowd a crowd fundraising portion of it. But no, it was the other way around.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it turns out at the third bank, the guy had just seen how hard we worked, and he believed in us. And at that point, we were able to tell him some numbers from our pop-up events. And so he had the ability to kind of overwrite and make the loan happen.
Okay.
And that's how it finally came to be.
And that's the one where he made it happen, but then tried to send it in to make it an SBA. And they said, no, because you got crowdfunded. So they wanted a signed release from every single person that donated even $1.
Hundreds of people.
Sure.
To have them say that they didn't expect a stake in the business, even though we tried to explain that was the whole point of the crowdfunding.
I wonder if that's a lesson down the road. Would you advise people doing something similar to that, to the crowdfunding, to put a disclaimer in there that you will not get a portion of the business? I'm just saying, so next time you go to seriously, think about that, right?
It was already in there.
It was in there, but they didn't care.
Well, because you're getting whatever the perk is.
That's right.
That's what.
What's the official? What's the term again? Crowdfunding. Crowdfunding. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you said you heard that idea from another podcast. What was that like? How did that conversation go? Hey, we should do this and see if our community will support us.
That was a really fun exercise in how we were going to compromise on things. Actually, it was great. Ashley wanted to start out just doing you just crowdfund. There's no perks. And the idea was just to be able
you're investing not in the sense that you're going to get anything back monetarily, but that you're going to get value in a shop that you're going to want to hang out at in the future.
Yeah. And then
I want this stuff.
I said, that's what I said. I said, I love the idea of, doing that. And I would probably do that, but I get more excited about a sweatshirt than
you had and again, in chatting with you all, I remember, I think was a $10 coffee was one level, and then is that right? And $10 and then 20 you got this, and 100 you got that, right?
It was a coffee
different
mug,
levels.
But you got a percentage off if you bring that coffee mug in when you get it filled, and
so when
free coffee.
The highest level was you got a whole bookcase dedicated to whoever you wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I go in there, I see the names on the bookcases. That's what those are. All right. Mm-hmm. So, and then you started doing the pop-up shops. Again, same question. Where did that idea come from? I had not seen, for a new business to do that. I don't know if I was familiar with something like that before. It was that hey, we need some cash.
Maybe that was part of it,
and that's
but
okay.
Maybe people were so excited. We announced in December of 2021.
Okay.
And people got so excited that I think we were just really anxious to be able to sell books to people. And we had this idea pre-COVID of doing book fair at a bar.
Okay.
Before the idea of Booktenders ever came up, we saw this meme that was Scholastic Book Fair, but at a bar. And we were like, we should do that summit and get Cicada to come down.
Sure.
And so then we were like, let's have a book fair at a bar. And that was our most successful pop-up.
Yeah. And
maybe our most successful day ever in business.
Right.
Second.
It's the second. Yeah.
But the other one came up because after we had announced, one of our friends had messaged, I think it was Kristen Hodges.
Oh, about HerdCon?
Yes, and said, hey, we're having this HerdCon. I think it would be cool if you guys could set up there. And they were still looking for vendors. So I was like, hey, we could do this. It would be perfect. A way to like introduce ourselves. Like, hey.
That's right. It's a marketing thing. There's no doubt.
Yeah. And my advice would be so we didn't do great on sales that day. We did okay, but we didn't do great. But it was invaluable in the sense that everything that could have gone wrong did.
Okay.
And we learned so much. Like nothing
really
worked. And so if you're going to follow our little path, pick a first pop-up where no one actually wants to shop with you.
Okay.
And so
that there's so much other stuff
Sure.
that, you know.
So the few people that do, yeah.
And everybody at HerdCon is so like chill.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it was really
It
the
was
absolute
great.
perfect.
Sure. All right, so now, again, let's fast forward. We're approved. We got the location. Now what? That store didn't need? Did you all remodel it, or was it already built? Okay.
It was 3 separate spaces, and the first third was a barbershop. The very back was an old apartment. They took it down to the studs.
Okay.
I mean, it was in bad shape.
To begin
Old
with,
building. Old building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To begin with, it started as we knew that from the barbershop back was one space because I guess that was his storage area. Mm-hmm. So they knocked it all the way back to the studs there, and that was going to be our space. So we had plans, marked up on how we were going to be able to use that with being like having the bar there, having the seating area, having a kids corner, all this. And then, what was it, 2 months later, I guess they had started working on the apartment behind it and realized that there was actually a connecting door, and they were like, hey, do you want this space too? And we're like, absolutely,
there
yes, we
yeah.
need more room.
Sure.
And we can't, we would have made it work, but I can't imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Any delays in that process? Right? I love it, yeah. Has any business open on the day they said they're going to open?
I don't think so.
Right? We're going to open April 1st.
If they did,
it's September 30th.
I don't know what pull they had.
We aimed for March. We were open in June. So we actually planned an author event. This woman wrote a book about, it's the fictional story of Dorothy Draper, who brought the Greenbrier back to life after World War II. She reached out to us in December and said, hey, I'm writing this book. I'd like to send you guys copies. We're like, awesome. And she's like, do you want to do an event? We're like, yeah. And we said, we will definitely be open at the end of May.
Because
we were not.
Our original timeline was February.
Yeah.
And I said, it's not going to be February.
Sure.
Let's push that out. And then we pushed it out till, I think I said, maybe we'll think April, like end of April, beginning of May, pushing that out enough, and then
so never plan anything.
Yeah, no. Add 4 months.
It did
we
work
had
out.
it. We had it in the parking lot.
I remember that. Yeah.
Because we couldn't even go inside.
Sure.
Because it hadn't been approved by the fire marshal.
Right.
Yeah.
So what else on that? So obviously you had to get a beer and wine license.
Yeah.
And I've never heard that's a good time. Right.
And then getting.
Did you have that when you opened on day one?
No.
I didn't think so. Yeah.
About a month later.
Right. And that's another piece of advice, right? That's another one. I start that one earlier than almost anything else.
My number one piece of advice is never forget you need a mop sink.
Okay, that's the one that they came in and said you need a mop sink.
We
Yeah.
talked to the health department early on because, like, what happened, what Mandy's referring to is we kind of thought we had everything in line. We talked to the health department and found out we needed a mop sink. And the store had already been plumbed.
And planned out.
And so we ended up having to put it in the very front of the store, or
Okay.
So we made a little cover for it, and it looks pretty, and we dedicated it to our friend Kenny and put pictures of Kenny on it.
So that you bring up a great point, though. Like, how would you know that you have to have a mop sink there? Was there a place, though, you could have found that out? Like, was...
Yes and no. I don't I don't know that there was a place that we could have very specifically found out about the mop sink.
Or other things like that.
Yeah,
Like those weird caveats.
There are.
The second bathroom, we found out we had to have a second bathroom because we serve beer and wine.
I've heard that too.
The mop sink, our plumber, after we found out, said, "Oh yeah, I knew that. I just forgot." So that might be a place that you can find out.
Ask your plumber? I mean, it kind of makes sense in a way, right? I mean, but yeah.
And hope that he knows.
Yeah, and remembers.
But
Sure.
yeah, I would say the people at the health department are awesome. Like, get a contact there and say, like, hey, I'm looking
Before we get started.
Yeah, before we get started, before we make too many plans, what do I need to account for?
Right.
Yeah.
And this is what I have in mind. Is this
We had sent the plans that I had drawn up with everything in it, and I think it was one of those things where they didn't notice that it didn't have a mop sink on the plans,
right?
And then we didn't think about the fact that we needed one. So
okay, all right. So now we talked about this. You've exceeded your expectations. Without going into specific numbers, though, what kind of goals did you have when you opened? What expectations did you have?
Goal was make a profit in the first year.
Okay.
Because don't tell me I can't do something.
Right.
That worked.
Yeah, and it was profitable.
Another goal was just to be open long enough for people to know we existed,
sure,
and for the community to come in and realize that we were a positive addition and something that was actually going to help and enrich the community, and not just come in and try to, I don't know,
bring too much hustle and bustle.
Squeeze because we're from Huntington.
Yeah.
And we're starting a business in Barboursville. We didn't want it to feel like we were trying to bring Huntington to Barboursville. We wanted to make sure that everybody knew that we wanted to be a part of the Barboursville community.
Sure.
And then also, obviously, we want to welcome people from Huntington too, but we didn't want the community to feel like we were just encroaching,
sure,
as opposed to just trying to meld in with them.
What have you learned in this first year? What surprised you the most in this first year?
I know what Ashley's going to say.
What am I going to say?
How much physical work it takes to own a book.
Oh, yeah. I never thought owning a bookstore would be so physically demanding.
Okay.
Books are heavy.
Right.
70 boxes of books are really heavy.
Sure. Is that what you had when you opened, like 70? Or?
Well, we had them before we opened.
That's right. You were lugging them around.
Because we were told luckily there's a space next door, but I just can't tell you how many times I lugged those boxes back and forth, because then we were looking for books to take to the pop-up. But I don't know what's surprised me.
I mean, that can be a positive.
I think I'm the type of person that just kind of rolls with the punches.
Okay.
I don't think I had, I really wanted to do well, but I don't know. I didn't have any expectations.
I don't know that I had...
Nothing surprised. That's a good thing. That's okay. Nothing has surprised you.
Well, I mean, there have been things that surprised me, but I don't know that it was because we had an expectation that has been subverted.
And it's still a learning process
the
entire time.
Yeah.
I mean, just figuring out our ordering and our software and what works and what doesn't.
Sure.
I mean, it's all still a learning process.
That's right.
For sure.
The community wants.
Yeah.
You want to make sure to have what the people you're selling to want,
yes,
and not just what you want.
Yeah, and who knows what the future holds, but what you're doing now won't be the same in 5 years. I mean, it's just
it won't
right.
be the same next year.
That's right.
And I don't expect it to. But I think that that's kind of important when you're doing business, is you have to constantly be adapting.
If you're doing business the same way you were 5 years ago, you're probably not in business right now.
Right.
What goals do you all have now? What new goals do you have? What new expectations do you have? What's next?
I want everyone to find us. This has just been happening recently.
No one knows you're there. No one knows.
It's happened a few times. I mean, we have a great customer base, but 3 times in the past month, someone's come in who is a huge book lover, who loves to buy books, who has had no idea that we are there. And I'm like, how are these people, like these book lovers, not finding us?
Sure.
So I just want everyone who wants to come to Booktenders to know about Booktenders.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, you can open up a brilliant business and have a great concept and everything's perfect, but if you don't advertise, you don't brand, you don't market, no one's going to find you. How have you all been doing that branding, that marketing in this first year and a couple months?
We've tried several things.
Yeah.
Mainly, a lot of it is Facebook and Instagram because, I mean, those are honestly
organic
the
or
best
paid
way.
posts?
Organic.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the best way to really get to anybody. But outside of that, we've done a few, not advertisements, but like put in coupons in certain flyers, or we've sponsored a couple of different things to get our name out there. It's just really kind of trying to find the perfect meetup of the people that we're trying to reach, and how they receive all of their information, and trying to put those two together is very difficult.
And you wouldn't believe how many people say, "Oh, I've been wanting to get here forever, but I live all the way in Huntington."
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I drove from there today. I'll drive back to there tonight.
Trust me, I know.
And then do it again tomorrow.
To be entirely fair, I absolutely felt the same way.
I know.
Everybody in Huntington.
It's not
Y'all
that
drive
far.
me nuts.
It's not that far, you guys. But
I'll
like,
get
how
yelled
many
at
of
for
those
saying
people
that.
drive to Target all the time? That's what I want to tell them. When's the last time you went to Target, huh?
Sure, it's make a right instead of a left, right? Off the exit there. So, any challenges, adversities in the first year? Staffing and inventory, things that a lot of people have been talking about this last year.
Our challenges were one after another prior to opening.
Okay.
Lots of crying, lots of
lots of taking things out on bookcases. That were being...
lots of broken nails and bruised body parts. But I say since we opened, every challenge, again, is a learning opportunity and just something we are learning about our business.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And it works that we're both very opposite and the same in ways that are very complementary.
Right.
Like her reading catalog is completely different than mine, but also we meld on a few things.
Sure.
And it kind of works like that with everything. Like, I'll have an idea and she'll either say, oh my gosh, yes, this is exactly what I was thinking, or we'll both have the opposite idea, and then we'll be like, okay, but we could do this.
How do we take the best parts of each of those?
So it works out.
Yeah.
So earlier you were talking about your market research and all that stuff, and maybe I should have asked this earlier. What about the big box stores, the internet, the Kindles, and all that kind of stuff, right?
So,
it can be a challenge to open up a brick and mortar store in 2022, 2023. So how did that go into it? The internet, the Kindles, and the big box stores.
So Amazon, as well as other big box stores, are not the competition that you think they are.
Why not? To me, they are. I would 1,000% say they are. They are.
Absolutely agreed with you until I was doing whole research.
Yeah.
But essentially, the idea of being able to have it in one day, all that is very exciting. And Amazon sells books at a loss specifically just to pull you in, and that kind of...
That's interesting.
Yeah. But that kind of pulls people in thinking that books, might be less expensive or they expect. But as far as them being your competition, Amazon isn't going to give you the same thing that independent bookstores are. So at an independent bookstore, you're going to have people who are going to know what you like to read as you come in.
Yeah,
They're going to know what is going to work for you. They're going to be able to give you recommendations based on what you like or what you don't like. And they're going to have a sort of wider range of ideas to pull from, whereas Amazon's going to be pulling from an algorithm.
Yeah. The best algorithm can't do what we can do.
Sure.
Which is know our customer, hear from them what they liked, what they didn't like, what they liked about the book, what they didn't like, and then say, I think you would love this one.
Sure.
And most book readers, I think, a lot of the time aren't necessarily going to Amazon to get a book because they want to buy books from Amazon.
Right.
They're doing that because they know a book is out. They go and,
And we have a website where you can order books. If you go to booktenderswv.com instead of amazon.com, you can buy any book pretty much.
What percentage of your sales are online?
Very few.
Okay.
We that is a goal in the next years to better our website. But we are only 2 people.
Sure.
And but anyway, is it going to cost more ordering from us? Yes. But do you want to give us money, or do you want to give Jeff Bezos money?
100%. Absolutely.
So even if you're like, oh, it's so much more convenient to order online, I don't want to leave the house, you can still do that with us.
Right.
You can even call us and say, I want this book, and we will ship it to you.
And our post office is a block away. So then we just stroll on down to the post office and mail it out.
Sure. Yeah, let's get to the end of this.
I do want to say something.
Yeah. Why'd you raise your hand? But okay, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, just going into big box stores competition and that, I tell people I wouldn't have opened an independent bookstore prior to COVID. But COVID did 2 things. It got people really invested in local businesses and got a lot of people shopping small, supporting local, because that's who took care of us in those tough times. And also people kind of rediscovered this love of reading, and reading has become super cool again. Yeah. So it's weird, but COVID actually helped independent bookstores. That's awesome. And all over the U.S., people are opening them again. They're coming back in a big way.
There is something charming, and there's another word I'm looking for, but there is something very charming about walking through a bookstore. Mm-hmm. And your else bookstore, you can do it with a glass of wine or a beer too, right? So that makes it even better. So yeah, I think that's it. So Ashley, Mandy, again, thank you so much. It's an awesome bookstore. If you've not been to it, Booktenders. Is that Main Street or Central Avenue? I don't know which one.
621 Central Avenue.
Central Avenue, on the corner of like Central and Main.
Yeah.
I always get mixed up which one it is. And again, booktenderswv.com. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
Thanks, Reeves.
This has been In Your Business. I'm Reeves Kurtner. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, share, and even leave us a review. Season 1 of In Your Business is presented by Moses Auto Mall of Huntington, mosesmeansmore.com, and powered by the Huntington Regional Chamber of Commerce and Kindred Communications.